Hi there, everyone. You know, when it comes to domestic violence, we have gotten only half of the story. You know what? Male victims of domestic violence have been systematically ignored and marginalized. Most people don't even think that they exist. This has happened because of advocates in the media telling half the story and only half the story. The story that has been told focuses exclusively on female victims and leaves out men and boys, even though there's an abundance of evidence for both research and clinical data that men and boys comprise a significant portion of the victims of domestic violence. When we're told half the story, we're left with a distorted view. Just imagine that you were told the story of the Cinderella, but the glass slipper part was omitted. You'd be left with a distorted picture of Cinderella. But that is exactly what's happening with domestic violence. According to a fact sheet from the Coalition Against Domestic Violence, there are 1.3 million female victims of domestic violence per year, but it also shows that there are 835,000 male victims of domestic violence. They never told of this significant finding. Why not present both? Somehow the male section is never mentioned. We never see that glass slipper. Omitting male victims of domestic violence is very common. There are estimates of 610 sites on the internet that quote the same half of the story. Male victims just don't exist according to these sites. They quote only their preferred half of the research findings. Various national research studies have shown equal rates of violence by men and women since as early as 1984. This claim has often been ignored, concealed, or flatly denied by the academic community. Another study conducted by the CDC states that 53% of the victims of domestic violence were actually men. The National Intimate Partner and Sexual Violence Survey estimates that 5,365,000 men were victims each year, which makes men a majority of domestic violence victims. The CDC is clearly telling half of the story, the glass slipper. Since our domestic violence services are built for women, do men find help and services? The answer is a resounding no, they don't. It's time we start telling the entire story of domestic violence, both for men and women. At this point, men are facing hardship and discrimination that is a result of our legislators being ignorant of the other half of the story in funding discriminatory laws and services that are being paid by our taxes. It's time they heard the rest of the story.